Species.
I walk up to this guy, I say, "Hi, I'm Steve," and I shake his hand. He goes, "Hi, I'm David. I'm Leah's boyfriend."
Who's Leah?
I have no idea.
All right, welcome to Origin of Species. My name is Scott. I'm here, as always, with my friend Steve. All right, who's Leah, Steve?
So I was at someone's home and hadn't realized that another couple had come into the house that turned out to be the cousin of the hostess.
Okay.
So it was just a party situation.
Oh, okay.
But it was initially awkward, but
That
I
is
felt
weird.
like that I bonded with David.
Mm-hmm.
And also at the same time, I have like the next time I really want to annoy people, I have like my opening. I'm just going to introduce myself as David, Leah's boyfriend.
Right. Yeah.
And
so,
just kind of go in with confidence
Yeah.
and do that.
because
So,
this guy just knew, he knew Leah,
yeah,
and he knew there was another man here with a
Well,
nice beard.
I don't think it was that. Or maybe it was. It is a nice beard. I've got it just at the right. It's not too much. You had said something maybe a year ago about Tim the Toolman's neighbor. What's it? Al?
Oh, yeah, Al. Yeah, you don't want to get the Al beard.
Yeah, which I don't think I have.
No.
Which means I do. Which means 10 years from now, like my daughter's going to look at a picture of me and go, "Oh, you look like Tim the
I
Toolman."
know.
I think what people will look back at this time and be really surprised is to know that how much Duck Dynasty had an impact on how the way people looked. And it's very true.
It is true.
Now,
Pre-Duck Dynasty, nobody had that beard.
no. And
Nobody.
Then,
Or some weird guy.
right. And no one wants to admit it was from Duck Dynasty, even the hipsters.
Let me tell you something about Duck Dynasty. I didn't know we were going to be talking about it.
Yeah.
If you have a problem with Duck Dynasty, you have a problem with yourself. That show is funny.
Is it still on?
I don't think so.
Big fan of that show.
Yeah, good. Well, so I want to thank you, Steve, for coming in and cheering me up. I've been in sort of a stressed mood today,
Mhm.
and I realized, and this is something I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
We talk about words we like and words
Mhm.
we don't like new words, and most
Right.
of them, the gut reaction is to not like it, like the word hangry.
Mm-hmm.
Hangry, though, is a great word because in just all you do is change one letter
Right.
in it, you know what you're saying. I realized that I've been trying to, I've been doing this weight loss challenge at work, and I'm trying to do some IF during the week. You know what IF is?
No.
Intermittent fasting.
Oh, okay.
So-
yeah.
I don't really call it IF. I just
You should.
thought I'd throw that in there.
No, it sounds fancy. If you do that
Doing
with
IF.
with your essential oils.
Essential oils, IF.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to say it.
Yeah.
I was going to say and kale. Oh,
Yeah.
I said it. But
Why?
Here's
do
the
you wanna
deal.
Put me in a bad mood now.
I'm sorry, but I go through the whole day without eating, and I'm not really hungry. I'm fine. Like, I feel like I'm fine,
Right.
but then it really is like the Snickers commercial.
Yeah.
I start getting people start asking me if I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong? Like, what's wrong with me? Why do I seem so upset? And I'm like, nothing. I'm fine. You
Right.
know. And then I get home,
And you
then
don't
I
say it that way.
yeah,
You're like, nothing.
yeah. I'm like, I'm fine. Like, why do you guys think
Yeah.
that? I get real defensive. Then I get home, like today, I slammed a bowl of chili, and within about 15 minutes, I was
Mhm.
good. I had some leftover chili.
Mm-hmm.
I ate the chili, and I
Then
realized
you slammed it. I like that.
I slammed it. I was like, what's the biggest spoon I have? And I'm just going to heat this baby up, eat it. So hangry,
Mhm.
are you good with hangry? Or it's, I understand the initial.
No, I'm fine with it because I live a lot of my life in that I'm in between.
Yeah.
What if I'm not just angry? I'm generally angry, but I shove it down. But then I get hungry. And
Do you
then
eat lunch? I know you exercise at lunch.
I have a regimented.
Okay.
I have a protein shake every day for lunch.
Okay.
So my problem is, or what I generally try to do is I have a very kind of prescripted breakfast, lunch, and then I eat whatever I want for dinner. Unfortunately, I've been dealing with a gift card I received several months ago that was a gateway drug to Dunkin' Donuts and their app that you can order something.
The apps will get you, man.
The apps will get you.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been dealing with that. So I have my regimented meals with a bonus 700 calories just shoved in there somewhere.
What are you getting from Dunkin' Donuts? What are you not getting?
No, I get a donut and a coffee.
Okay,
But
classic.
It's kind of like it's the accrued interest though of calories.
Sure.
That doesn't sound that bad, but 300 calories, 300 calories, 300 calories.
Yeah, but you also, like I said, you exercise at work.
I exercise like I'm a 75-year-old man. I told someone the other day, like, they're like, you going for your walk again? I'm like, I'm preparing for retirement.
Whenever they say it that way, like your walk, if they said you're going to go walk, you're going to take a walk, but they say you going on your walk?
Yeah, because I'm that guy.
Now, I will tell you, Steve and I both work in Richmond. We work downtown.
And sitting.
And Steve religiously goes on his walk. I sometimes do. The other day, we both realized that we were walking the same way. So we met up in the middle of a bridge over the James River, like two lovers. And
then we did the dirty dancing thing where Scott leapt into the air.
Didn't say a word. Yeah. I just turned around and you heard... That's the one.
It was a beautiful scene.
All right. So with that having been said, and as you visualize that, we're going to move to the idiom portion of the program.
Yes.
And I think we're getting back into one of our favorite subjects, right?
Well, as my personal Twitter account lists, I'm a word and animal enthusiast.
Yes.
So I get to do both tonight. And this is a sequel episode that I think is our first. We've had other sequel episodes, basically holiday related.
Yes.
Halloween and Thanksgiving / Roadhouse.
Right.
So we're actually getting back into some more horse idioms.
Sweet.
So last year we did an episode all about horse idioms, and there was a plethora of horse idioms.
Was that the episode where we got to talk about Little House a lot?
I think we did.
That's one of my favorite episodes. So you can go back and...
I was actually listening to that before, and it's fun to hear that song. Mm-hmm. That song, it's kind of tough to, if you're hangry, that song I think could kind of take you down.
You're so hangry you could eat a horse. Oh, you're saying watching Little House on the Prairie. Yeah. Sure. But people do say don't they say I'm so hungry I could eat a horse? Or did I make that up?
No, okay. I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. That's going to be on the conclusion of our trinity of horse episodes, but not on this one.
Yeah.
So I feel also obligated, if I'm going to discuss horses, to also just bring up bears. Because I don't know if longtime listeners are aware of my fear of bears. My daughter calls it a phobia. I correct her. It is a healthy respect and fear.
Yeah.
But I don't like bears. And it's getting close to spring. If you see a bear anytime, you shouldn't really go, oh, hey, there's a bear. Let's go up and, reenact the first 3/4 of Grizzly Man. You should stay away from that bear. But especially in springtime, just want to tell people, keep an eye out for bears.
They're bears in springtime.
They're like the alligators of the mountains.
Well, as Nate Bargatze said, you had sent me a clip of one of his bits about bears, and he said something like, they're doing okay. Like, Grizzly Man, you didn't really need to sacrifice yourself, because if you take one look at them, they're doing okay for themselves. But I was just thinking, do you remember, I don't know, 5 years ago when there was like a loose bear? And I was just thinking that was like near your neighborhood.
Oh yeah. Well, my coworkers at the time in my profession, I proctor a lot of meetings. So with the other updates that I was providing at the meetings, I made sure that everyone had an update on the latest on where the bear was.
That's probably the most important thing, right?
I led off every meeting.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah. So, you've sort of influenced me on bears, because I used to think bears were cool, and I still don't mind watching now hear me out. I do like watching the video of them catching the salmon, but that's hundreds of miles away.
Right.
I wouldn't be dumb enough, but you've sort of taught me that healthy respect. And I think you've also done a good job of bringing your daughter up with that healthy respect. So,
and God forbid, wherever the day she meets a bear, like every fear she's had in her entire life that she's like shoved down, will probably come up. But you know what? Shouldn't have been in a spot where a bear was near.
Yeah,
so that's kind of on her.
That's on her. Right. Hey, speaking of, and I don't know if you are going to get into this, but any updates on ATS?
You mean Animals That Suck?
I do.
It's coming. It's springtime. It's going to be here. I don't want to go like total Netflix and just have it emerge one day, but we'll give our listeners a heads up. And if you go to species.com/animals, there'll be a promo clip there for you to get you excited about that. We'll address animals. We'll take a critical examination of good animals, possums, cats, Mindy the dog. But probably have a lot of focus on animals that suck. Bears are definitely up there. Raccoons, bats. the chicken of the cave, basically sky rats that are now responsible for the I don't know. I've never said it out loud. What's it? Coronavirus. Bats.
Yeah,
They're
I don't think
rats
anybody.
with wings.
Some people do like bats, though. I mean, there are. I have friends that are animal lovers to the extent that they it's like every animal, and
So to go to an animal that I'd say I'm ambivalent on, I'd say the best thing they have going for them is there's a lot of idioms or horses.
I'm with you.
So just a couple. I'm going to kind of pepper us with some horse facts as we go through this.
Yes.
So just a couple horse facts to get us started. Lifespan of a horse, 25 to 30 years.
Sort of like a grunge singer.
It'd be more 20. Well, yeah, right in the middle, 27.
Yeah.
Speed, max running 55 miles an hour.
Really?
So I actually thought it was a little slack. You hear a lot about horsepower. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not Jaguar.
I wouldn't have guessed that high though. But there you go.
But I'm a cat guy. Another thing, we talked about having a phobia of bears, which again I don't have.
Right.
There is actually a phobia of horses. There's
I'm
something
sure
called
there is.
equinophobia, which is a psychological fear of horses, and it's a real thing. It's not that kind of phobia when you disagree with someone politically and you say they have a phobia.
Yeah.
There is an actual phobia of horses, which I don't think I have. I have a fear of getting kicked in the face, but I think that kind of goes back to
they've got those crazy eyes.
Yeah, but something like the symptoms are actually palpitations and shortness of breath,
right,
and crying, and it also might apply to donkeys and mules, which is
who's
kind of
afraid
weird.
of a donkey or a mule?
I could almost respect being scared of a horse.
Yeah,
but
same.
if you have like donkeyphobic or whatever, donkeyphobic. I'm not a psychologist, but if you experience that, I'm sorry. I hope you can deal with that and listen to animals that suck. We'll give you some facts on animals.
Hey, before you get to your next horse fact, can I jump in with a cheetah fact?
Please.
An actual one I know because going to that little safari thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you know how if you can picture a cheetah, how their eyes have those black stripes that go down the face. The reason they do that is because they are predators during the day instead of the night. So and they have to be super sneaky because and that's also why they have to be fast because they can't fight. Like a lion will kick everybody's buns. That's the top apex predator out there. And then you have the tiger, and then you keep going down until you get to the cheetah. Cheetah gets whipped by any of them. Mm-hmm. So it has to be super sneaky. Right. And that's why it's got the sort of like the eye black for baseball players. It's got to, soak up the sun for them. So bonus cheetah fact.
Well, you actually hit on my two last horse facts I wanted to do before.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, in a good way. You nailed it. So you're aware that you'll see horses with blinders on. One of the reasons that is due to their incredible eyesight. So you were discussing the eye of the cheetah.
Yes.
The eyeball of a horse is not exactly spherical, but flattened. And this allows them to have a field of vision of about 350 degrees. So that's why you see the horses.
So they've got incredible eyesight, but you got to. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Did you ever do that thing when you were a kid where you take like a paper towel roll or toilet paper roll and you look through the roll and everything is much more. The colors are more vibrant. Everything's a little bit more focused than when you don't have it on. It's something about focusing. So I'm sure it's the same sort of deal, but with way better eyesight, apparently.
And one of the reasons horses have that eyesight is because they are prey animals. Mm-hmm. We don't really think of predators going after horses, but it's a fact. It's a horse fact.
Yeah.
So their prey, some of the animals that go after them, mountain lions, wolves, coyotes, and as no surprise, bears. Yeah. So, horse facts, and for anyone who's still listening, we're actually going to do idioms now. So, the first idiom I wanted to do was horse sense.
Yeah.
Is this one that you've heard of before? Do you ever use?
Yeah. I don't know that I use it. Definitely heard it, and I've always thought it means they've got a good instincts. They've got good instincts.
Good common sense. So, our friends at Phrase Finder give the definition of a robust form of common sense believed to be found in poorly educated but shrewd people.
Oh, I see.
So it's a little bit condescending.
Salt of the earth?
Yeah,
kind of like
salt, yeah. But I've heard it before, and I think I've used it. Like someone's just got horse sense; they got common sense. But it's one I don't use too often. But when I do use it or I hear it, if you really think about it,
I've never I've never thought about it, but it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, what does that mean? Does it mean that or do horses have good common sense?
Yeah.
Or is it like horse whisperers that have a
Right.
horse sense? I don't know what it means.
So we're going to get back to the intelligence of horses, but first I just want to talk a little bit about the root of this and where it's been used before. The origin of horse sense is pretty direct. It's attributed to American writer James Kirk Paulding, who wrote the novel Westward Ho! With an exclamation point. Westward Ho!
Okay.
In 1832. And the quote is, "I'm for Dangerfield, though he hasn't got a white pocket handkerchief. And though he can't play the plane, he's a man of good, strong horse sense."
So in that context, I totally get it. Because he's saying, he's not a book smart guy. He's a
he's a
horse
cowhand.
smart guy. There was no street smart. So he's like a dirt smart guy.
And my love of book titles. I love it's Westward Ho! With an exclamation point.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Westward Ho!
Right.
And it was Ice Cube's second solo album. Same title. So
I like
to
that you
see
kept it West Coast. Good job.
Yeah, you gotta keep it West Coast for life. So that was where it entered the lexicon. A couple years later, and sticking with Phrase Finder, the New York magazine The Nation has a quote and actually discusses the origin of it. The new phrase, "born in the West, we believe, of horse sense," which is applied to the intellectual ability of men who exceed others in practical wisdom.
Makes total sense.
Yeah. So when you see it in the context of cowboys in the West and stuff like that, it makes sense. That to me kind of makes this guy's got horse sense. He's got good common.
Very satisfying.
Sort of
I mean, the author that said it perfectly made sense because it was being contrasted to, not somebody with a white pocket square. It's not a powdered wig. It's a guy that works with horses that has good.
It sounds like another way to say salt of the earth, but not as condescending.
Yeah, I think it's street smart versus book smart, but that's great because I never would have known what that meant.
So one more fact on James Kirk Paulding. He is also attributed with creating a maxim, reward your friends and punish your enemies. Goes back to him.
Okay.
So
it's like the opposite of love your enemies. It's like, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that one. It's pretty basic.
Yeah.
Reward your friends and punish your enemies. Like, no doy.
That's kind of it's kind of like, it's one of those things.
It's horse sense, I guess.
Yeah, it is. But it's also like the kind of look for a job when you have a job.
Right.
Buy low, sell high. It's one of those things that is common sense, but sometimes you need to be reminded of it.
It is true if we're going to ruminate on this just a bit, because there is the thing where people say, which is very true, you treat the ones you love the worst sometimes, right? We're nicer to the people that we don't like for whatever reason, and our good friends and loved ones we sometimes can take advantage of or be an ass to. So speaking of mules
So this brings me back to what I think is the most important thing, not necessarily the root of this, but the question, are horses smart? And based on my research, as someone who's going to very shortly have an animals podcast, I'd have to say I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So getting into my Google machine, spending some time to put that question in.
Well, their brain can't be but so big. I mean, look at their head.
Well, that's one way to look at it.
Well, I mean, really, bigger brains usually mean smarter. I mean, just maybe that's my horse sense kicking in. But.
It could be. So going to our friends at NPR, National Public Radio, an article titled "How Smart Are Horses?" Doesn't really say. I didn't feel like I got a good answer. The authors, it references some people who've been doing studies on horses and acknowledge, even with their findings that seem to show they have some good cognitive ability, that there's some follow-up studies needed. So in an article you'd think would be called "How Smart Are Horses?" you get a definitive answer. You don't in this situation. The basis of the horses being smart is that some dogs didn't do what the horses did, which I think is I like dogs. I like Mindy the dog. Yeah. But again, when you're thinking genius animals, dogs aren't really shooting up there, or at least for me.
No.
So I did some further research on animals. I wanted to see what the smartest animals were. So I'm going to go to my friends at the Reader's Digest.
Before you even say, I'm predicting big heads. I'm talking whales, dolphins, apes, but I could be wrong. Go.
So I found pretty much the same list of 10 animals on several sites, but the Reader's Digest had 12. So I'm going to stick with this, despite some kind of bad beginnings to this list.
Uh-oh.
So the first animal listed And the title of this article on the Reader's Digest is 12 Animals Who Are Probably Smarter Than You. So the first one they put is raccoons. So
Oh, no.
this list is tainted. It's garbage, pretty much, but I'm going to still go through with it. So they list that because raccoons can pick locks. And I don't know. I'm sure there's
that's more because of their freaking opposable thumbs. They lucked out with that.
And there's some guys that you give them enough meth, they'll figure out how to pick a lock.
Absolutely.
So doesn't do too much for me. Pigs.
Okay.
Pigs know how to use mirrors.
Big heads. Yep.
Well, not really. They're kind of small sometimes.
Okay.
They get bigger. Squirrels.
Small heads.
Because squirrels know how to remember where their nuts are. Which I think is good. I think that's important. Of remembering if you're burying your food somewhere.
Yeah, because I feel like dogs will bury stuff and forget where they put it.
Yeah. I'm not going to go through all these animals. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up this one animal, dolphins.
Yeah.
And they list it because dolphins cheat. And that's a nice way to kind of put something about dolphins because they're awful.
You've brought up dolphins before. We've talked about
dolphins. And want to be discreet with this, but they're basically the Harvey Weinsteins of the ocean.
Yeah.
There's no way.
There's a good drunk history.
Mm-hmm.
Google, if you're 18 and above, Google drunk history dolphins.
Yeah. So we're not done with dolphins yet, but for now we're going to let them go because I don't want to disturb anybody as we go through this. So horse sense, meaning just having good common sense, comes from a book, Westward Ho. And are horses that smart? I would say no. I would say the reason, based on the other horse facts that we've learned today, I think they might show intelligence because they're prey animals. They need to get away from things. They have a good field of vision. Might make them look intelligent because they can see so much and be able to react a certain way. But again, not up there with thinking they're the best and brightest that we have in the animal kingdom.
Right.
Species.
This is Steve from Origin of Species. I'm very excited to tell you about my first solo podcast for the Species Network. Coming this spring, inspired by my love of nature, a podcast that provides a critical examination of animals and how they affect the world around us. Animals That Suck. In each episode of Animals That Suck, a special guest and I will discuss awesome animals like cats, possums, and Mindy the dog. Also, we will examine animals that are clearly terrible, like bears, raccoons, alligators, and probably your dog if you call it a fur baby. Animals That Suck, coming this spring from Species. For more information, go to species.com/animals. That's species.com/animals. Animals That Suck, coming this spring from Species.
Species.
All right. So we're going to get, for our next idiom, is beating a dead horse.
I'm glad we're finally doing this one.
And this is one I use all the time. I think it's pretty obvious. It's doing something that's absolutely pointless.
Yeah.
What I like about it is it's very hyperbolous. It's something that's absurd. It gives you a good picture of someone sitting on a dead horse, like whipping them. It's kind of like, throwing out the baby with the bathwater, toss you an arm and a leg. It's in that kind of thing. This is
in the pantheon of, I wouldn't say the Mount Rushmore of idioms, but it's in the it's like top tier, one we haven't done yet.
Yeah, but there's a great twist on it.
Really?
That the original meaning is different.
Okay.
Than that.
Yeah, so it's evolved over time.
Yeah.
Because to me, it just means you've proved your point. It's almost like kicking someone while they're down, but not really the same. But it's like, all right, we got you. You're just beating a dead horse. It's not going any further.
So going to our friends at Phrase Finder, the original use of this was flogging a dead horse, which is the same thing as beating a dead horse, but the meaning was different. It was a reference to work for which someone has been paid in advance and has potentially spent the proceeds already.
Really?
Yeah. So this goes back to the 17th century and is referred to in Richard Brome's play, The Antipodes. It was first performed in 1638 and it was printed out in 1640. And here's the quote. He curred a country gentleman that fell mad for spending of his land before he sold it. That is, 'twas sold to pay his debts. All went that way for a dead horse, as one would say. So it seems like you've paid for you've paid for a dead horse almost. You've bought something and it's worthless now.
Right. It's like, I'm trying to think of a more updated version of that, and I can't really.
Yeah, which is probably one of the reasons it evolved.
Yeah. But I mean, that is a concept that you still encounter. You know, you got a contractor you've already paid, and they kind of disappear without having done the work. Or it's interesting.
And it's a little bit, I'd say it's more in the kind of count your chickens before they hatch.
Yeah, I was thinking sort of the cat is out of the bag with the fake pig, or excuse me, the cat instead of the piglet. Yeah. You notice when, just as we talk about all the horse idioms and pig idioms and all these things, you wonder why it's kind of like the same reason we've got all these beans idioms. It's kind of like, these things have been around for a while. It's kind of been a big, humongous part of daily life for a long time. Yeah. So kind of makes sense. Horses were such a big deal.
Yeah. So before we get to how it evolved to our modern meaning of beating a dead horse being a pointless task, I want to spend a little bit of time with Richard Brome and his play, The Antipodes. So this play, again, was in the 1600s. Very interesting. It almost, to give the setup, it sounds like the plot of like a mid-90s Cinemax movie.
Of which I've seen many.
Of which, of course, we've all seen many. So,
because they're very good, and Mickey Rourke is generally in them. You know what?
Now that you said Mickey Rourke, and the Mickey Rourke is in the room, this reminded me of one of his. I guess he had an erotic or like sexy film genre he tried to do, because I remember there's 9.5 Weeks he did.
Sure.
And then he did some movie called Wild Orchid that I remember. I will date myself and talk about, there was a time where you looked in the green sheet, and if you look for BN or N.
If you were really desperate, BN would do the trick.
But I remember that I'm fairly certain this movie had N, and just at that point I was like trying to watch a movie like this isn't
I got one for you. With N, you're in, but with SSC, it's a must see.
Yeah,
strong sexual content.
There we go. For anyone who lived in a pre-internet age, you know exactly what we're talking about. So.
Hashtag the struggle is real.
Yeah. So speaking of which, I'm going to try, this plot is insane, but I'm going to try to get a little bit of it here for you. So the opening scene starts with a painter by the name of Anthony Blaze welcoming his friend Master Joyless.
Like the worst rappers ever.
Yeah. But I mean, again, this Cinemax, Master Joyless is somehow unhappy. He's older, he's a widower, but he has a second wife who's 17 years old. Yet he's still unhappy. He has a son named Peregrine, like the Falcon, who is obsessed with traveling and voyaging, so much that it dominates his life, and has put him in a spot that this young man cannot consummate his marriage. He's been married for 3 years to his wife, can't consummate it. So again, this sounds like, this actually might be the basis of Wild Orchid. So at some part in this movie, he convinces...
Hold on a second. I thought this was Wild Orchid. No. What is this? This is the play?
This is the play from which beating a dead horse comes from.
Okay. It definitely could have passed for Wild Orchid.
So we get to a point of why it's called the Antipodes, which is the idea of... Remember when you were a kid, you talk about digging down and you'd hit China?
Yeah.
Well, this was like an idea that people actually kept right then.
Oh, wow.
And they convince young Peregrine that he is somehow dug through opposite of England on the other side of the world. Wow. And then a play within a play begins. And at this point, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse of going any further with this. So
yeah, I'm not that interested in the play within that play.
Yeah, but for 1640, when you're getting a Wild Orchid comparison, that sounds pretty...
Well, now I actually am intrigued. So is it like James and the Giant Peach? Like he digs down and all of a sudden he's like... It's like something going on in the center of the earth or something?
No, I think James actually consummates with the peach, whereas in this, I'm not sure. That seems to be more of an issue.
You're thinking of what's that movie with?
Wild Orchid 2 is what I think I'm thinking of with that. So anyway, the Antipodes, if you get a chance, check it out, Richard Brome. So let's get back to flogging a dead horse. When does it evolve into beating a dead horse? So again, this reference going from kind of a wasted effort, kind of counting chickens before they're hatched, now goes into something that's absolutely pointless. So it appears in print in the year 1859 in the report of a UK debate involving the Earl of Weismas, whose name is Francis Weismas Charteris Douglas, but better known as Lord Elcho.
I like that better.
Which is easier to say, and also makes me think if he might be friends with Don Diego from Zorro.
Yeah.
And it's in the debate he states, if the honorable member for Birmingham had been present, he would have asked the honorable gentleman whether he was satisfied with the results of his winter campaign. It was notorious that he was not, and a saying was attributed to him that he found he was flogging a dead horse. So, beating a dead horse is one that I like. It makes sense. It's something that's so absurd that it.
I gotta say, this is a little different than what I always. Again, these ones you use every day. To me, I always thought beating a dead horse meant like you've made your point. Stop. It's like preaching to the choir. You're like, dude, you're beating a dead horse. You already. But it kind of now I think of it more like I'm just beating my head against the wall here.
Yeah.
I'm beating a dead horse. It's not going anywhere.
So I would like to add one more use of this phrase. It's an alternate definition from a resource we don't use that often, but we want to diversify here. And it's from actually Urban Dictionary.
I knew you were going to say that because we always have to preface like we don't use this very often because we don't.
So dead horse is the name of a person who declines an invitation to a social event without a valid excuse.
Okay.
And I love that. I actually like that. I think it's the first time I've seen something on Urban Dictionary that actually appeals to me because I try to be a dead horse as much as I possibly can. I'm at that stage of life that there are few things better than getting out of plans, except when I'm hanging out with you.
The cancel plan rush is a real thing. It's great.
Yeah.
There's hardly any actual plans that are as good as a canceled plan. So
before we get to our last one, just a couple quick horse facts. Domestic horses have a lifespan of around 25 years. That being said, there is a 19th century horse named Old Billy that is said to have lived for 62 years, which I'm going to call horse feathers on that. I don't think that's real.
Oh, horse feathers.
Yeah.
I agree.
Horses can sleep both lying down and standing up.
I feel like I learned that from Mr. Ed. Big Perhaps. Mr. Ed fan over here.
And call back to our recent episode about Nate Bargatze. You get a chance to check out the Tennessee Kid. He has some insight on horses standing up or laying down.
Nice.
And horses are herbivores. They're plant eaters, which makes sense that they're prey. And bag of oats. Yeah, but I think it would be gross watching a horse attack something.
Yeah, that would give me horseophobia.
Yeah.
Or equinophobia or whatever it is.
I think, and maybe that's why they were created or evolved to be that way. So here to my last horse idiom of this episode, and perhaps we'll have a third. Perhaps we'll have this will be a trilogy that will conclude.
We will beat a dead horse.
We will beat. You know what? That's a great way to put it. We are going to beat this dead horse. So
no, the dead horse that we're beating are the Roadhouse episodes, I think. But we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, doesn't mean we're going to stop. We're not going to learn the lesson of this episode.
No.
So the last one is get off your high horse.
Right.
Which is one that I use. I don't know if I use frequently.
It's a very familiar one.
Yeah, but I've had it probably said to me before. So Phrase Finder gives us this one, and it's a request to someone to stop behaving in a haughty and self-righteous manner. So being on your high horse, you are being self-righteous and looking down on people. And I think it's a good visual with this.
Right.
You think you're above people, you're looking down on them. I could see in a time that when horses are probably the main mode of transportation,
right?
Someone might have like the Mercedes of horses,
right?
You might have the
Gremlin of horses.
Yeah, I'm trying to say something that people don't have anymore.
Yeah,
but still, so being on a high horse and going back to Phrase Finder, they say the reference is pretty literal because people would have high horses. The more money you had, better off you were with that. And the origin of this comes to someone that's a pretty interesting life, John Wycliffe. He mentioned this in his writing entitled English Works around 1380, ye emperor made him and his cardinals ride and read on high horse. So John Wycliffe was someone that I knew of and had needed to catch up on a little bit. So I always kind of thought of him as a Protestant. But he lived an interesting period, if you could tell by that date, before the Protestant Reformation.
13 something. Yeah.
So he is kind of a proto-Protestant that started pushing back against the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. And as people seemed to do that back then, things did not go well for them. So in his last days, Wycliffe really pushed for scriptures as the authority for Christianity. The Catholic Church disagreed with that, even though he died in the year 1384. So in the year 1415, he was declared a heretic by the Council of Constance. His works were ordered to be burned. His bodily remains were removed from consecrated ground, burned, and then the ashes thrown into a river. So things haven't changed that much, have they? No. I mean, I think that's the next step for our cancel wars, is to start going back and actually digging up the people that we've blamed for things. But can I tell you somebody who wasn't on a high horse? Who? I'm going to tell you about David, Leah's boyfriend.
Yeah. Who's Leah again?
David, Leah's boyfriend, was not on a high horse. Shook my hand, and even though I didn't know who Leah was, didn't look down on me about that. He was definitely not someone on a high horse. He had good horse sense. Yes. And unlike this episode, he did not beat a dead horse.
Hey, this is Scott from the Species Network, reminding you that if you like the show, help us out. You can tell a friend about us. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. You can follow us on Spotify. If you don't like what you hear, just keep that opinion to yourself, please. We're very sensitive, especially Steve, and we really just want to hear the good stuff. In case you didn't know, we do have more shows on the network, so if you go to speaksies.com/shows, you can find out more about True Facts with Robert Bankett, Personal Records, and the latest show, which will be coming out soon, Animals That Suck. Thanks again so much for listening.
Are horses that smart? I would say no.